Hey guys, Wolvie here and welcome back to the channel. As always, the usual disclaimer, any opinion here is mine and mine alone. Now, this is a two-part video. It's going to be one singular video, but it's going to be at least two filming sessions, where the first part here is going to be predictions as well as what needs to happen should RWBY get the green light for Volume 10 and beyond. And then the second part, I'm going to give my 2 cents on the whole aspect of the leak that has been circulating via 4chan on Volume 9, Chapter 10, which is the finale of this particular volume. So I'm going to give my 2 cents on that. And how I feel this is going to affect the future of RWBY. So, and I will mention here that when it comes to this particular leak, I will mention this in a future of RWBY video, which is going to be completely separate from this. So, with that bit all out of the way, I'm not wasting any more time. Now, before I go any further, this first part, I want to say it is a bit of a lightning round, so to speak, because I'm just going to go off on a few things I've seen, like, up to Volume 9, Chapter 9, and it's more so, like, what needs to happen, what I think is going to happen, that sort of thing. So, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, because there are things here in this part where it's going to be a separate video waiting for that. So that way, that's going to go into much more detail. So regarding Summer Rose, we need information on what exactly happened to her. We're given a few clues at this point, meaning that an imaginary monster took Summer. We also know that something happened with Summer and some Grimm. And we also know that Salem knew Summer. So we do need more information on what exactly happened to Summer. Now, I will add here that if Summer is found to be alive, that means the official companion, I don't think anybody can really trust that anymore, because it's been noted by quite a few people tied to working on RWBY that Summer is in fact dead, and we simply don't know what happened to her. But if she's found to be alive, it's like, can we really trust the writers of RWBY anymore? Now the next topic is going to be Little. So we know that he died at Volume 9, Chapter 8 with the T. And you see this, I do think Little is coming back as something better. And something better to be by RWBY's side. Because we've seen in Volume 9 up to this point, Little's the only one who's really been looking out for RWBY as opposed to the remainder of the team. And I'm going to get into the whole thing with the remainder of Team RWBY, and by that, Weiss, Blake, and Yang, and a little bit later in this section. But I do feel Little is going to be part of RWBY, and it's going to be amazing, in my personal opinion. Jean and Weiss. This is the romantic pairing for those of you familiar with White Knight. Do I think they're going to become canon? No. Now, key clue here is Jean's facial expression. And the reason why he has it like this is because Weiss was the only one he was able to save between Pyrrha, Weiss, and Penny. The thing is, with Penny, it's just like no one really could get to Pyrrha in time. Weiss, he was able to. Penny was the one who asked Jean to kill her. And for the record, RWBY still does not know that Jean killed Penny at Penny's request. Does RWBY become a catalyst in the strain for the romantic relationship between Blake and Yang? Yes. Because if you see here, the way Yang is, it's like she's hugging her, but she doesn't really have a moment to grieve. And if you notice here, moments later, where with Blake's, how the way Blake is, it's like, it's exposing Yang's selfishness. Because you have to remember, Volume 1, Chapter 3, Blake questions RWBY's reasoning to be a huntress. During the Badge and Burden 2-parter, Weiss chose RWBY's ability as a huntress in training, all that stuff. Both of those instances, Yang chose to ignore. And when Yang chose to question RWBY's decision-making in the beginning of Volume 8, that's the only time where somebody was like, yo, well, hold up, wait a minute. That sort of thing. So I do feel that RWBY will become a major catalyst in Yang and Blake breaking up, because it's like you're choosing somebody who you're not married to over your actual family member. And I'm going to get into this a little bit further in the Bumblebee video. This is going to be one of those topics, and like I said, this is a bit of a lightning round style, where it's like, it's going to be brief. That way I can get to like as much as I could. Regarding the remainder of Team RWBY, Weiss, Blake, and Yang, I honestly feel that there needs to be a very, very serious heart-to-heart between the entire team, regardless of how RWBY comes back. Whether RWBY comes back as herself, RWBY comes back as somebody older, RWBY comes back as Summer, who knows? But the team really needs to have a heart-to-heart, because if you're looking at Volume 9 up to this point, if you look at moments from Volumes 7 and 8, we're seeing a Team RWBY that's only caring about themselves individually, as opposed to the mission, which just means saving Remnant and having Ruby's back. And that selfishness is going to cost this team big time, and this is why I honestly feel they're going to be split up. And it's alongside the clue from Volume 8, late, where Weiss leads everybody in her plan with Whitley. So there's like there's a couple of those clues right there. So I do think that in order for Team RWBY to stay together, they need to have a very serious heart-to-heart. And it's like, and the way that the 3/4 of the team here are with John here is just like, this ain't good. This isn't it, guys. Will Yang's PTSD and abandonment issues resurrect it in the future? Yes. And again, if you think about the whole thing with RWBY, what she decided to do in chapter 8 in Volume 9, it's like, that's a very indication of a clue, which is like, you guys are doing your own thing. You're better off without me. And RWBY, like, the fact that the cup that RWBY was drinking out of had a forget-me-not flower on it, meaning that RWBY's going to remember just about everything. Whereas the other 3 members, Weiss, Blake, and Yang, they will probably come back to Remnant forgetting something extremely important. Speaking of RWBY, we honestly don't know what she's going to come back as. And we do know that she's going to be reaching for Summer's weapon. So I honestly don't know what she's going to return as. But if I really had an opinion on this, I think she's going to be becoming an older version of herself with the knowledge of her youth. Or alternatively, she comes back as Summer, which defeats the whole thing in the official companion. Now, regarding the mace here, I'm going to expand on this a little bit. Some people are saying this is Ty's weapon. However, we also know there's one other character with a mace-like weapon, and that's Cardin. And I remember that comment from Twitter about this. So, because someone's like, oh, Cardin's coming back. And it's like, again, I should have liked that comment, and I don't think I did. But if you look at this mace very carefully, I think this might be Cardin's weapon. Because we simply don't know what Tai Yang's weapon was. Although we do know that Tai actually gave up the whole thing with being an actual huntsman instead and went to teaching instead. So that's on that. So we simply do not know. And this, in short, this is pretty much like up in the air for RWBY. When RWBY comes back, will Penny be a part of the equation? Yes. That is a resounding yes, because if you think about Penny, RWBY and Penny have always been close. Now the only other person who's close to Penny at any point is Winter, because when Penny gave Winter the Winter Maiden powers, Penny mentioned, I will be a part of you. And then who RWBY decides to become, Penny will be a part of RWBY that way. One of the last things I'm going to go mention here is that pertaining to these 4, yes, they all need to have a heart-to-heart. But if RWBY doesn't come back as a person as what they know her, how will they react? Now, we do know a difference of opinion comes along. Meaning that Blake mentions that it comes down to like when RWBY comes back. Meaning that whatever RWBY decides to do, it's hers and hers alone. There's not much we can really do about it. And then with Weiss echoing similar sentiments, saying that we have to accept RWBY's choice, which she decides to come back as. Whereas Yang, being Yang, one of the most impatient people out there. And by that, it's just like she wants certain things like happening right away. And then you also have to question Yang's reason to being the Huntress, which confirms basically what Raven was saying in the sense of like, not every person goes into the Huntsman academies for the same reason. Now, Jean has a major confession to make to RWBY. And yes, I'm referring to Penny. He has a very major confession to make. And I do think that RWBY's going to have a role in what happens to Oscar. Because Volume 8 mentioning that, there's not, I'm not so sure which volume it was. It's either 7 or 8. That Oscar mentioning there's not much left in that staff. Which also confirms something from Salem to Cinder in Volume 4. Where it's like, where Cinder is warned that if RWBY really gets a hold of her silver-eyed abilities, that means that there's only so much Salem could do to help Cinder. Meaning that Salem might be running out of resources herself. Now, the whole thing with the time travel aspect that Weiss was like questioning everybody else in, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, personally. That's just me. Do I feel that some of the audience has been lied to about Pyrrha's return, quote unquote, like this? Yes, because it's been noted that we've been told in previous times that Pyrrha isn't coming back. Now you have to remember in Volume 6, I believe it's Chapter 9, where Pyrrha's mother makes an appearance, and it's the same voice actress. At that point, meaning that the same voice actress for Pyrrha is the same one for her mother. But the fact that Pyrrha comes back in some format in Volume 9, it's like, did the writers forget about this very statement that made? And did they forget about other things they've said in the past? Yes. Meaning that it shows that I don't think they can keep the, things consistent here. Which is a valid concern for those who are watching it for the show itself and not for the shipping moments. Because I used to be like for shipping moments until maybe second half of Volume 7. I'm like, screw this, screw the shipping moment stuff, because it's like some stuff got scattered brain, and basically I'm like, I'd rather just watch the show and then go after shipping moments, because shipping moments doesn't make it that good if you can't execute it consistently. I'm back. It's been a couple of days. I want to make sure I get my thoughts as crystal clear on this one as possible. This is one of the growing number of leaks in the sense of varying things tied to Volume 9, even the finale. Now, parts of the first half actually is true, because somebody on Twitter mentioned something along the lines, varying cuts they had to be made, the budget, etc., etc. So, and I believe it's one of the Volume 9 animators. Now, what we see here, and I do want to give some background reference here, is that 4chan, where this still is from, is like, it's to be taken with a grain of salt, because a lot of people said that's a conservative, right-wing train of thought with the stuff they post there. However, I will mention that a leak pertaining to an outfit for Summer Rose turned out to be factual and correct. So it's one of those things, it's like, who can we believe at this point? Now, with the first half here, it says here, yes, they revealed a few scrapped plot points. RWBY was supposed to be force-fed the team. Neo and Curious Cat were supposed to team up before Neo gets betrayed, and we see Neo pets. Nightshade, which for those of you who write fan fiction, is a romantic pairing between Jean and Blake. And I'm gonna stop the train of thought here. And the reason why I'm for now is that when it comes to Jean and Blake, this would have been a sign of Blake being someone unfaithful to Yang. And this would cause people to break up, you know, like for signs of infidelity, that sort of thing. And the last thing here, it says in that first half, says volume was cut from 12 episodes to 10. Now, again, the reason why I do see that this is 100% accurate, because again, there's somebody on Twitter who is one of the animators for RWBY for Volume 9, bring it to light that, hey, there's like budgets involved, things are going to have to get cut. Longer episodes cost more money. Now, I saw somebody quote tweet that, meaning that Rooster Teeth may have been fabricating some stuff regarding the crunch time, all that stuff. But we honestly don't know if that's actually the case or not. Now, I will not reveal what's exactly hidden behind the black, but it is kind of interesting. And for those of you who actually read like what's hidden inside underneath the black, it's like it really doesn't resolve the issue with the writing Rooster Teeth has had for RWBY for some time. That's the only thing I'm going to say about that, because if you look at the writing and the pacing for RWBY in recent volumes, it's like it's all over the place. It's like you really can't trust the show where it's going as it is right now. Which is why I'm increasing the call for the show to be completely rewritten from scratch. And for those of you who may say, oh, it's fine as it is, like how they're going to be able to do it, it's like the people who are probably going to be rewriting this, it's like they're probably going to be looking at everything for Title RWBY thus far. And they're probably going to be picking out and tearing apart every last instance of inconsistency in pacing. Meaning that varying material since Volume 4. And speaking of Volume 4 aspect of that, one of the other leaks I've seen is tied to Bumblebee. And again, what I'm going to be revealing here, in sense of what I noticed from like the stills from 4chan, is to take the information with a grain of salt. Bumblebee may not have been planned from the beginning, based on the 4chan post. And the reason why that is because you've got Volume 1 through 3 Blake saying varying things, and then Volumes 4 through 9, it's like, that's where the whole thing with the love is interesting, sort of thing. Now, you guys were paying close attention, you have characters that were interested or being written out or killed. Sun was written out, Ilya was written out, Adam was killed. And then you also have to remember the controversy that's tied to the Volume 4 soundtrack with that track, Bumblebee. And things kind of hit the fan in that regard. Now, based on the information I provided from the leaks, again, I'm uncomfortable with revealing the what's hidden behind the black tied to the finale of the Volume 9. What do I think about this? Again, take everything you've seen from 4chan on Twitter with a grain of salt. With that being said, if the spoiler that was revealed for Volume 9, Chapter 10 turns out to be true, with what happens to certain characters, this does mean that Rooster Teeth has a lot of explaining to do. And certain things about crunch time and the budget, all that stuff, this is where, and it's pretty damn unfortunate, it's like Rooster Teeth, they may have to sell the IP to RWBY. Get it away from Warner Brothers altogether. And for the record, the only reason why Warner Brothers took it in was because no one else wanted it. But I think RWBY really needs to get a full-blown rewrite from scratch. Because information's like, from the leakers, it's like, no one's going to want to watch it. You lose money like that. And the whole thing for Bumblebee, like I said, I do have a 4chan like post on that. I've kind of found it on Twitter. It has some interesting information about Bumblebee supposedly not being planned until the volume 4 through 9 section. So it's not, so I'm going to give my opinion on that in when I get to the Bumblebee video. So with that, this is not going to be too long of a, section for the video, but to do a recap, and I'm only going to recap the leak, because the lightning round is just 100% opinion, is that Rooster Teeth really needs to be more careful with who, does their Twitter posts on social media, as well as safeguarding the information. Because if you remember, the same thing happened with the Game of Thrones series finale. That finale information got leaked out, and it turned out to be correct. If the information for the Volume 9 finale is correct, this becomes damage that, in many respects, irreparable. Rooster Teeth can no longer be trusted. And people are going to be wanting to leave the show altogether. Because you have to remember, the Summer Rose outfit that we saw in Volume 9, Chapter 9 turned out to be true based on the leak. And with Neo's fate currently be a bit on the unknown side, based on what we know, I really cannot trust Rooster Teeth with the writing on this. I mean, there needs to be a completely brand new team that can repair the show and make it awesome again. And that's all I have for this video. With Wolvie here signing off, I will catch you all on the flip side.